there's 4 ways that you can get ultra wealthy. There's 4 ways that you can make tons of money, beat inflation, okay? Beat inflation so that your dollar today that you're using, so if you make money, that dollar, you're actually using it elsewhere so that it increases in value. And instead of having $1 today, you got $5 in a year, okay? So we think through this and we think through that long-term component. And the first step, right? The first way that someone might, let's say somebody might use money is you use someone else's money to fund business growth, okay? So somebody comes up, or you've got a business idea, you pitch to somebody else that you have this business idea, you go talk to your grandfather, you go talk to your grandmother, they give you $1,000, and now you can use their money to develop your business, and then eventually, ideally, in a proper scenario, you pitch them, or you grow this company, and you're able to raise funds, pay them back over time, and then your initial investment comes back. They make a little bit more money off of that initial investment, and everybody's happy, right? So that's like a pretty standard example. Now, one thing I want to bring up before I get into the other 3 methods is that a lot of people will say, why do I want to do this, right? So I just said something to my wife that I want to finish off purchasing. I have this number in my head with a crypto coin, Bitcoin, that I want to get to and just be like, all right, I've got this, I'm good, I don't need any more. And the reason being is I think I have these projections of where it's going to be. So it actually brings up the second aspect of how you can get really, really wealthy is you take your money and you invest it in some type of capital or some other form of financial being, right? In hopes or in analysis that it will grow over time. And so the reason here is that in doing this is that why do we want to do this, right? My wife's like, well, why do we have to put it in that? Why do you need to do this? We have enough. Why don't you want to do this elsewhere? Why do you think that this has to be this way? And the reason I think a lot of people miss is, one thing I said to my wife is like, this could de-stress us quite a bit as far as things are concerned. You know, we've got our monthly meetings around our money. We got our monthly meetings around our assets. We've got our monthly meetings around where cash currently is and how we're going to move that cash around so that it's not just sitting there wasting away. And this is one way I actually think could be beneficial for anyone. But specifically in our case, we have the cash, so why not deploy it as well as I think we can do it? And it's having that specific plan, right? So we talked about the first plan is you use somebody else's money to invest in your company, right? And the other thing that you could do is you could use your money to invest in your company, your business idea. So this would be like bootstrapping. So you're taking this and you're saying, all right, I've got this business idea. I've got this problem that I think that we can solve. I want to take money. And so I might have a job right now and I want to save, let's say 10% out of every single month, and take this money and start an actual business that alleviates a problem for specific people so that in time, let's say every single month I take $100 and now all of a sudden at the end of the year I got $100 or $1,200 and I want to take that, I want to start a company and then turn that ideally into $120,000 or $1 million. And this is literally what I did with one of our companies is that I started it in a Monopoly bin in my parents' garage and I just kept putting my money back into the business, We moved into a barn. We moved into a warehouse. Now we're moving to a larger facility. And that money went from this Monopoly bin investment into now multi-million-dollar investments. And so I use my money to buy into my dream, to buy into my passion, to continue to grow. Okay. So those are 2 examples that you can use as far as business concern, somebody else's money, your money. Okay, for your own businesses. Okay, now another example that you can use is that you can use someone else's money to invest in someone's company, somebody else's company, and this would be like a fund manager. And this is sort of like, you know, this is what people would do in the sense of trying to build out some type of long-term setup where they take somebody else's money, they're a financial advisor, and in all reality, they just take that the financial situation, they put it into some various stocks or ETFs, and they hope that it grows over a long period of time. Okay, and now, before we get into this 4th one, because I think that was sort of lame, when we get into the 4th one, I think this is much more applicable to everybody out there, is that I think if we can think through the lens of you guys can control your situation. And it really comes back to what's your earning power, how much money are you making, and how much do you enjoy your job? How much can you bring home, and how much can you increase month over month, and how much can you decrease your expenses, but then in turn either invest into yourself or invest into other companies with your own money. And what this means is that you have to establish some perspective or some goal that every single month you're going to pay this bill. And the bill is either going to be investing in your own business or investing in some company that you want to invest in, or some type of ETF that you want to invest in. And so over a long period of time, I think through this and I say, okay, if I take $100 and I want to invest it into a specific company, in 3 to 5 years, I want to make sure that that $100, let's say it's a 5x return, so it's $500. Right. So if I'm looking at, I'm looking at something like AMD, and on average, I purchased around $100 and I put $50,000 into it. If it gets to $400 per share, now all of a sudden I'm looking at this, I got $200,000 in it because I've got 4 times the return. And that could happen by 2028, 2029. And so we think through this lens of doing this because we don't want the dollar that's in our pocket. And I actually put a dollar into my pocket. This dollar, this $5 in this dollar bill is going to lose value day over day over day, right? Like the cost to buy a coffee, right, 25 years ago was $1. The cost to buy a coffee this morning was $3.18. So the same exact cup of coffee went up, but the dollar did not. Now, if we're earning more money, okay, if we're earning more money than we're spending, we can then save money and then increase our earning or increase our ability to have other assets that de-stress us, that make our lives a little bit easier, and set up in a situation where if we lose our job or we get to a point where we don't want to work anymore, we're in that position to make that freedom of choice, to have that freedom to not work or to work. And I think that's ultimately the overarching lesson, is that when we're looking at the 4 ways to make money, it comes back to using your money to invest in your business, using someone else's money to invest in your business, using your money to invest in a company, using someone else's money to invest in a company, right? Those are really, really phenomenal ways, but they still have to be seen long term, and you still have to consistently review your financial strategy and what your financial goals are and the reasons why you want to have them. If you sit there and say, well, it's not for me, I love my job, that's great. You should love your job, because if you love your job, you're passionate about it, and you're going to want to work more, and you're going to want to keep working, and you're going to want to make more money because you want to provide more value to your job. And if you provide more value to your job, you're going to provide more value to society, and everything is hunky-dory. But there might come a point where a market crashes, or there's COVID again, or some crazy thing happens. We bomb Iran for like the 30th time, right? Like, all these things could come to fruition, and now the industry and the area that you work in are in a bad spot, and your cash has just been sitting in a bank account instead of increasing in value in case that does occur on a specific day, where you then have the freedom to choose, okay, now I can take time off, or now I can take a step back, or now I have enough money that I can just continue to live day to day and, for the rest of my life, and just make the decisions that I want on a day-to-day basis. And so it comes back to those 4 key areas. And for me personally, the biggest thing has been, 1, investing in my own business, and I not understanding how to scale the business for a long period of time, and just working, but never taking a step back and thinking, how can I make this dollar that I'm investing in my business worth $15, worth $20, instead of being worth $2 down the road, right? And then the other thing is, after I realized, we had more money and learning about how to invest in markets, how to invest in other assets and real estate and things like that, you start to look at it, you say, okay, if I invest in this real estate purchase, or if I invest in this specific stock over 5 to 10 years, and that's the other thing, is you've got to be patient. We're not trading. We are not talking about trading. We are talking about long-term investments based around patience. And so look at it through those four ways. I would select those two main ways. Obviously, you can always talk to a family if you're privileged enough to do that. But always have some type of goal or background that you're trying to work towards. I hope this helps somebody out there. Until next time, peace.